Hello, comrades. Welcome back to Jacob's Custom Gunworks. Today, this is going to be kind of a little bit of a rant video more than a tabletop, so you've been forewarned. What I have in front of me is a Desert Eagle in 44 Magnum. Of course, this one is made by Magnum Research. I believe this is what they call the Mark 19. I did a video earlier of shooting this gun today, and it was an absolute riot to shoot. It was a lot of fun. I had some issues not only in the video but off screen where I was shooting it, and I was having some double feeds and some short strokes, where of course the slide wasn't coming all the way back and ejecting around. Well, I was getting double feeds with some hotter ammo, which I have the box here. I was using this Fiocchi Defense Dynamics 200 grain at 1475. I figured this would be a good speed to cycle the slide. And it does, but my extractor wasn't picking up on the spent shell casing, ejecting it, and putting, of course, a new round in the chamber, trying to double feed. And then I also had some of this federal stuff here with the Barnes expander bullets in 225, so a little lighter, and of course it's going to be a little slower. This stuff here is going to run at about 1280. And this stuff actually shot really well. You did notice the difference recoil-wise between the two loads. But this ran the best out of the two loads that I had today. But I did have an issue where I had a short stroke, which honestly figured it's because I did shoot this one-handed, which is something that they can be a little finicky with, and being a little slower. So only had two malfunctions with this stuff, and this is a 20-round box versus a 50-round box. And I had, out of that Fiocchi stuff, I had an 80% double feed rate. So it was really terrible. So I figured, okay, well, we've got some issues with the extractor. So I brought the gun back to the bench, and I tore it apart, and I tore the bolt apart. And let me show you something. See that there? Want to take a guess at what that is? I'll give you a minute. Okay, not a literal minute, but you know what I mean. So Magnum Research calls that a spring. What the hell? It is a polymer piece of shit, in my opinion. I mean, this is what they consider your extractor spring. And last time I checked, I thought a spring was a metallic device, generally, in a spiral design, sometimes different, because of course we have magazine springs and things like that, but I've never heard a polymer piece called a spring. They call it a polymer spring. And that is actually what is in your extractor. When I tore this apart, I expected a damn spiral spring. So, yeah, that had hardly any retention on it, and this gun's not very old, and it hasn't been shot a lot. So I tore it apart, tore the bolt apart, and I went through some of my spring box. And what I found was a AR disconnector spring. And it fit the profile of the bolt for this Magnum Research 44 Magnum very well. So I went ahead and installed that, and it had good retention, and I didn't have any binding, anything like that. And I went ahead and assembled the gun back together and did some function tests with some snap caps, and they seemed to work very well. I did do some function tests, with some snap caps prior to that, and it was hit or miss. I want to say I had a 50-50 fail success rate, but I can attribute that this ammunition, this Fiocchi Defense Dynamics, and this particular load, the casings are garbage. They still would not work. I had some old spent shell casings, and I figured I'd just run them through the gun to make sure that the extractor was still grabbing them, and they sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. So I don't think this was the answer. I do think I had a combination of two different things: this ammunition not working, and then that pile of shit being regarded as a spring. Now, my rant is, these guns are expensive. I mean, in some cases over $2,000, depending on what setup you get. And Magnum Research, you can't do better than a polymer, and I use it in air quotations, spring. Really? My understanding is at some point in time these were an actual metallic spring that was in here. And apparently they were having issues, so this was the answer. I expect this kind of shit to come out of a fucking high point, not a desert eagle. Rant over.